All right, let's get this started. What's happening, everybody? My name is Ryan Wesley, and I am a football scout with We in That Mode, and mostly a talent scout, just a high school athletics talent scout. Former scout writer, high school football coach. But I want to jump on here and talk about one thing in particular, and that is recruiting. More so, where to start in recruiting. So let's treat this like a high school football recruiting 101. And lesson one is where to start. So the one thing that I get asked all the time by parents and high school athletes when it comes to recruiting is, how do I get recruited? Now, everybody's recruiting process is very different, right? So you're going to hear a lot of different stories, of different tips, tidbits, advice, whatever. The thing is everyone's experience is unique to themselves. They might be similar, but they are unique to that individual being recruited. And the reason why is because recruiting, much like anything else that we do, but sports, recruiting, businesses, all that stuff, it involves people. And recruiting is a business that revolves around people, talent scouting, talent selection, and choosing where to go to school. And so what you're going to hear from a lot of people is not really law. Okay, the outliers exist in all of this. You can get all of the best advice and follow it to the T and none of it work out, or you could do absolutely none of it and be one of the highest recruited players out there. It really just depends on the individual. Now, all of my tips for recruiting are more so guidelines. They're just my tips, my advice from my personal experience, but I am well aware that what I say or what I advise might be the opposite of what actually works for one person, even though it works for somebody else. That is what it is. But the one thing that I would tell everybody, it doesn't matter where you are in this process. If you're an 8th grader who's getting ready to become a 9th grader and you want to get a head start and start early on your recruiting process because you know from middle school that what you want to do is go play college football, whether you're a current freshman, a sophomore, a junior, or a senior, it's all going to be the same. Okay. And if you're a senior and you're just starting in your recruiting process, you are in a bad spot. You are in a bad spot. It's not impossible to be recruited late. It's not impossible to make it on a college team after never doing anything in recruiting until 3 weeks before you graduate high school. It's not impossible. It's just not probable. Okay. So remember, just because something is possible does not mean it's probable. So if you are late, you're late. It might be a little bit different for current seniors, what I'm going to say. But if you are an incoming senior or junior, wherever you are in the recruiting process or your personal recruiting journey, the one thing that I'm going to suggest is going to remain the same across the board, and that is where to start. I have 3 tips for where to start in the high school football recruiting process. Now, these 3 aren't necessarily in an order. They kind of are, but not really. They're more so all 3 of these boxes just simply need to be checked. So we're going to start off with the first one. The first one is probably the most obvious in my opinion, but the first one is Twitter. Maybe it's not as obvious, okay, because a lot of people don't know about Twitter, or X is what it's called now, but Twitter is the perfect place to drive your recruiting. It doesn't matter whether you're, an incoming freshman, a current freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior, you should have a Twitter account. Now, if your parents don't want you to have a Twitter, understandable. If they don't want you to have social media, I fully understand it. The thing is, parents, Twitter in this sense is not TikTok, it's not Snapchat, it's not Instagram. Twitter in this sense is more like a LinkedIn. It's going to be business for them. I have 0 issues with parents monitoring Twitter accounts. Monitor your kids' social media in general. All right. The world is crazy. I get it. But if your high school athlete wants to play college football, wants a shot at college sports, Twitter is a big deal. Okay. Monitor it. Now, it's important to understand, do not run it as if you are them. It is actually pretty obvious to know when a Twitter account is being ran by an adult versus when it's being ran by an adolescent. So let's make sure that you guide these kids through their Twitter, how to DM, how to talk to people, what to like, what not to like, what conversations to stay away from, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes on with Twitter. It's very important to have. Just monitor it. If you're somebody who doesn't want your kid on social media, don't make it private. Don't have a private account. Having a private account is actually a red flag, and it's kind of worse than not having an account at all. So don't make it private, okay? Make sure those DMs are open, and then make sure that you're active on Twitter and that certain boxes are checked on that. The more important things is make sure you have a profile picture that shows you. Make sure your bio is filled out. Location, make sure your name is on there, your actual name. Try to make your Twitter handle as close to your actual name as possible. Spell your school out. Have your location, actually not necessarily location tracking turned on, but where it says city and state, just fill that out. Okay, either where you live or where your school is, if the two are not the same city or whatnot. It's perfectly fine. Positions, again, school, don't abbreviate your school, spell your school's name. You can abbreviate the HS for high school, but spell your school's name out. Height, weight, positions, if you play multiple positions, if you're a multiple sport athlete, go ahead and put that on there. GPA is a good one to have on there. NCAA ID number, that's something we're going to come back to. But make sure you have that on there as well. And then when it comes to the link, Huddle link, you need to have your Huddle for your film. Have that link in the link spot, but make it to where it goes to your highlights tab on Huddle. That's the link that you want to put in there. And then the pinned tweet that you want to have, your top tweet needs to be your most recent film, most recent updated film, which is going to bring me to my next point of where to start. That is film. Highlight film. You need to have highlight film. Now I get it. You might be an 8th grader or a 9th grader or a sophomore who does not have varsity film. You're playing freshman ball, you're playing JV ball, and your team does not record. What I would say to that is, if you have somebody at the game who's able to record some of your plays and stuff like that, that would be great, because we can upload that to Huddle, or you can upload that to YouTube. If you're using YouTube, that's perfectly fine, but you want to have that on there. If you don't, that's fine, right? As an underclassman, it's okay. It's not the end of the world if you don't have it. If you have workout clips and stuff like that, all of that stuff is to be saved for your Twitter. Post that there. When it comes to Huddle, if you don't have film, the best thing, my best recommendation is make sure that your profile on Huddle is at least filled out. Profile picture, height, weight, position, all that stuff needs to be filled out on there. That kind of looks like your bio, because if you don't have film as an underclassman, it's a little bit understandable, but it makes it more obvious that you're locked into what you're doing. If they go to your Huddle, it looks like you're actually being active and updating those sites. So that's good. The next thing about film is film structure. Now, film is the most important aspect when it comes to recruiting from the end of the player. It is your resume. It is everything. Nothing speaks more than film. Film is the biggest thing, okay? It's not necessarily about what you know. It's always about what you show on film. You got to make sure that your film is structured properly. We want these things to help our recruiting, not hinder it. And improperly structured film can hinder recruiting a lot faster than I think people realize. It is probably one of the fastest ways for you to not have your name added to a recruiting list simply because your film structure is bad. I've seen players in person who are ballers, and then I go and look at their film and it is so terribly put together that it's almost confusing. If your best play, it falls around the minute and 35 or later mark, and your top 5 plays are somewhere a minute and a half or deeper into your film, nobody's going to see that. They're not going to sit around that way. They're not going to watch the whole thing. Just because somebody pushes play doesn't mean that they have to wait until it's all over. They will turn that off after the first 1 to 2 to 3 plays real quick. So the important rule of thumb when it comes to structuring your film is your best plays need to be first. Best plays first, not chronologically ordered, but from best plays first. And think of it this way. You have 1 to 3 plays to try to keep that college coach's attention for the next 2 to 5. Okay? 1 to 3. You've got 1 to 3. It could be 1. You might get 3 to impress them enough to stay for an additional 2 to 5. You have that long, and that resets every time. Every play it resets. Every play it resets. Now, you might make it 15 plays in and they're loving what they see. They're more than likely going to watch the whole thing, or they've seen enough and they're going to go ask questions. The thing about your film, if your highlight film can get a college coach to want to find out more about you, be it by reaching out to your coach, reaching out to you personally, going and acquiring actual game film so they can watch more, reaching out to anybody about you, following you on Twitter, your film, your highlight film has done its job. At that point, it's done its job. Now it's time for you to level up and take the next step. So we've got Twitter, highlight film. The third one is camps. When it comes to starting recruiting, you have your Twitter all together, you're active on there, your bio's filled out, you have your film together, it's cut up well, your most recent highlight is pinned to the top of your Twitter, you're good to go there, but you're sending DMs to people, you're not really getting much hit, and you're trying to figure out, so how do I get in front of these coaches? How do I get this recruiting to take off? I've done these other things aren't really happening. Camps are the big one. Okay. This is where you actually go and make the connections that you will follow up with on Twitter, and you'll send your film and all that greatness. But college camps, okay, to be more specific about which type of camps. In my opinion, I think that you can get something out of almost anything. So if you go to one of these camps and you learn anything, if you're able to take anything away from it, it probably serve some benefit, maybe not cost wise. That's up to you. I'm not a pocket watcher, so what you decide to do with your money is on you. But what I will say is prioritize college camps. How you decide to determine the other ones is completely up to you. But prioritize going to college camps. If you're a freshman, go to 1 to 2. Right? If you can go to a local college camp and go to like a showcase something, perfectly fine, right? Just make sure it's one that's kind of been around for a while, but go to 2 so you can kind of get the experience and the feel for it, okay? Because when it comes to those combine drills, like the pro shuttle, your broad jump, your 40, all that stuff, there are guys coming out of college who are top players in college who spend months trying to perfect or at least master as much as they can how to run those drills. So go and learn about it. Go try to give yourself a heads up. You don't want the first time you ever go to a camp to be your senior year when you're trying hard to get noticed and you're whiffing on certain things simply because you've never done it before, because it's new. So I suggest go to camps, get them checked out early. But as you start to progress through it, narrow them down. Okay, travel, lodging, all that stuff comes into play the further away you go from home to go look. In Colorado, we have a lot of colleges out here, something like 11 colleges from D2 up, football teams. So it's easier to stay around here and hit local camps and not have to worry about it. Got a bunch of RMAC schools and got a handful of FBS schools that you can go to and an FCS school that you can go to their camps. The big thing is go to these camps, make these connections and keep them narrowed down, right? Start to actually determine where it is that you kind of want to go. And then if you've been going to camps for a couple years, for 2 years or so, and then you're also on Twitter and you're making these connections and building these relationships, you're going to get a feel for what levels of colleges are reaching out to you. If you have a bunch of D2s hitting you up, a couple of D3s and maybe one D1 or no D1s, well then lean into the D2. Lean into that, okay? Then maybe start to look at a FCS or 2 just to see if there's any hits there. But if there's not, the level of which you're being recruited at is the level at which you are more than likely best to succeed early on. I wanted to kind of word that specifically just because a lot of people look at, if I'm being recruited D2 but I feel like I'm a D1 player, I'm not being recruited where I'm supposed to go. That is wrong. Okay, we have to stop thinking that way, but that's more so a top-down thing. We as the adults who have been around this longer, who understand and are able to make that mental switch of the whole D1 or bust outlook, it's on us to admit our own personal biases when it comes to how we talk about football, because we do it too. And then we wonder why these high school kids are looking at anything that's not D1 as less than. And it's really just, that's strictly out of them not knowing any better. We know better. So it's on us to explain that being a D1 player coming out of high school is not as common as it used to be, because before, developing players was still a thing. The transfer portal, NIL, all that business aspect of it has really changed a lot at the D1 level, not because players aren't talented enough to come out, but mostly because they are not prepared or ready to be on the field, or at least perceived like they're ready to be on the field in the next year to year and a half. Right? Like, you got to be coming out of high school. They expect for you to be on the field either as a true freshman or to be on the field as a, redshirt freshman. Okay. And really out there making plays. Otherwise, they're going to go to the portal. And so that gives you an opportunity to go where you're being recruited. And in the portal are players from D2, from D3, from NAIA, from JUCO. Okay. So in the portal are players that are coming from those levels that you're being recruited at. That's just how it is now. That's just what it is. So don't look at it as, I feel like I'm a higher caliber player at this, because I'm going to tell you right now, if they felt like you were a higher caliber player, they would recruit you. Right? Once you get in front of them, obviously they don't know about everybody, but if you get in front of people and you're not being recruited at the level that you feel like you should be recruited at, but you're being recruited at a level, that right there is a tell that that's the level that you were working from. That's the level that you're at, and that's the level that you're working from. It doesn't mean that you can't go and become a D1 player. It just means that you might have to start at D2. You might have to start at D3, okay? If you feel like those levels are beneath you, okay, then go prove it, right? The easiest way to prove that is by, if that's all that you have coming your way, take it. Go prove it. Because then you should be on the field early on, right? If you really are D1 and you end up at a D2, D3, and you feel like you're supposed to be D1, show it on film, right? It's not what you know, it's what you show. Show it, and then somebody will come pick you up. That's just, for the most part, outliers exist. But let's just do a quick little rundown, a recap, okay? Number 1, where to start in the recruiting process? Twitter account. Number 2, film. That's the most important of your recruiting, is film. 1 is an active Twitter. Make sure everything is open. You're not private. Your DMs are open so people can contact you. You're active on there. Bio's filled out. Film is pinned. Number 2 was film. Number 3 is camps, primarily college camps. Now, a bonus tip was that NCAA ID number. That is something that I would highly suggest if you're looking at this. I don't care what level you're at. If you say, I want to become a college football player, a college athlete, go right now, Google NCAA ID number, and then look for the NCAA website that pops up. It's very simple. You can figure that out and fill it out. Get it done right now. Just go and get it done so it's knocked out of the way. That's basically your driver's license number, right, for your college athletics. If they ever need to look anything up, that's your ID number. It has all your athletic stuff attached to it. So just go and do it now. You can do it right now, have it done, throw that in your bio. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other things that need to be done. There are a lot of different avenues for high school recruiting that you can take, that you can look into, but the big thing is where to start. If you wanted to know, if we were having a conversation where to start and I was to give you 3 tips, it's Twitter, film, go to college camps. That's it. If you found this helpful and you are wanting to get more tips, or you know somebody who needs tips, who just likes the advice, hey, Scout Speak. You can follow me on YouTube and TikTok that I never use. You can follow me on Twitter at CoachWes_23. It's the same as my Instagram. And I post a lot of players. I retweet a lot of players, but I kind of post some insight here and there and try to help out as much as I can. But all of the information that I give out will be sitting on YouTube. So cool. And this podcast now, I don't know. I have no idea. I still got to get used to being on camera. This is awkward. Anyway, until next time. Peace.